Alright, so I don't know if you guys can hear me very well, but hopefully you can. I just figured I'd give you a little sneak peek, walk around, whatever you want to call it, of the new motor. It's the 6.4, 392, whatever, same thing. We've got MSD ignition system on it, pace setter long tube headers, and we've also got a 90 millimeter throttle body, which is right over here, right here. It's all taped off, you can't even see it right now, but nonetheless it's there. But yeah, so there it is in all of its glory. 6.4, the big upgrade that we're doing, which actually is really not that bad. Not much different than just swapping it straight to a 5.7, another 5.7 anyways. The long tubes sure look good. Okay, so a couple things to note about doing this swap. If you're going to do this swap, the thermostat, coolant, outlet, whatever you want to call it, is different on the 6.4. It's got an electric thermostat that looks like this right here. So it's an electric thermostat, plugs in. You can see down there very well, but so my truck does not have the hookup for that. So I switched it to the standard style hookup with a regular thermostat. But the thing is there's no groove in this outlet here for your gasket and thermostat to sit in. So I actually had to use this piece of special plastic that's made for being attached to radiators and make a ring out of it, because you're missing this groove right here where the thermostat and that gasket sit in there recessed. And what happens is the groove, all it does is hold that gasket from spreading out like this. So you can't just go and slap it on the other one, because this is completely flat and there's no groove, so it would spread out and the pressure would blow the gasket out. So what I did is I replicated this groove on a piece of plastic, special plastic, like what they use to attach to radiators. Actually exactly what they use to attach to radiators, that's what it came from. And I made this little spacer right here, this one right here, and it goes in between the outlet and the face of the water pump there. So it's just the right size. You're gonna have to do that. And then another thing you'll have to do is if you're putting long tubes on, there is a knock sensor right up under here, right here. And this one I'm gonna make a little heat shield for, because it's how close it is to that header. And also I had to turn it because it was kind of faced this way and it was almost touching this, so I had to turn it and point it down a little bit. But you can't turn it too far because your motor mount goes right here. So there's that. And then, oh, the EGR system. So I took all the EGR components out. See my big pile of parts over here. So this goes into your intake. You actually have to make a bracket, a plate to cover up where this goes, because this part sticks into your intake. So you have to make a steel plate to cover that. So this came off. This is the heat shield, EGR valve, more tubing. All this stuff can come off and stay off. There's a tube that goes from here to your exhaust manifold normally, which is right, there's the part of the exhaust manifold where it hooks to. And so you can take all that off, but I would suggest leaving this on. This is just the cooler, the EGR cooler, and it runs through the timing cover. So you can't just switch your water pump over and think, oh, you're gonna be good to get rid of this line here, because this is actually a hole in the timing cover. So even if you swap the water pump over, it's not going to cover that hole up. It's still going to be there, and you'll just end up leaking coolant out. So my suggestion is to just leave this right intact, because this is all a sealed system, and it's not hurting anything. It's just going to flow coolant through there, and that's it. So, and there's nothing hot going through there to make it hot, so it's not going to be generating heat, additional heat, or anything else like that. Okay, next thing. So this is your harness here for the MDS system. Again, I have a big truck, 2500 heavy duty, and so I don't have MDS on mine because I had the 5.7, and the 5.7 that came in my truck didn't have emissions like the EGR, and it didn't have MDS. So this whole harness is not going to get hooked up. This will just sit here and hang out and do nothing. But the reason I was telling you about that is so I can tell you about this. This plug right here that goes onto here, you actually have to pull this off because this plug is on your wiring harness on your truck. So there's that. And then let me see here, what else could I have to do? Oil dipstick. So if you put headers on, if you don't put headers on, it doesn't matter, but if you put headers on, you're actually going to have to rebend this because it tries to come up almost directly through this this exhaust tubing right here. So you're going to have to bend that all up to keep it away from there. But that's not really that hard. It's actually pretty easy. So my biggest suggestion is keep the EGR cooler setup up here so that you don't have to change the timing cover and water pump, because if you choose to get rid of that, then you're going to end up having to change your timing cover and water pump, which isn't a big deal. But if you are like me, you know, are doing a brand new motor swap, I mean, this thing is brand spanking new, guys. Not one single mile on it. It came in a box. So you know, it's brand new, not a reman, it's not anything, it's straight from Chrysler, brand new. And I know it probably seems crazy that I'm taking and putting long tubes and MSD ignition system and everything else on a brand new motor that was complete. I could have just left it alone in theory, but I figured since I have it out, it'd be a lot easier to do it while it's out. But again, my suggestion is not to replace the timing cover and the water pump, even if you have brand new ones. Like you can see on this motor right here, I've got a brand new water pump. I actually just did that about a month ago, along with a new coolant sensor, temp sensor, and a brand new oil pressure sensor. But I'm leaving all those, even though it's a brand new water pump, because like I said before, if you replace the water pump, you're going to have to replace the timing cover at the same time, because you're still going to have that hole back here. So, all things considered, it's actually really not a difficult swap so far. So good. Everything's gone pretty smoothly. These are your anchor points if you want to see where we're at. It's right here by this freeze plug. And then right here where your alternator bolts on, or actually right below where your alternator bolts on, that's where your power steering pump bolts on, is what that is. So those are your ones up front. And then these two in the back are pretty obvious and pretty easy. Right here at the top corner of the heads. Couple pieces of advice. Go to Harbor Freight and get yourself this load leveler. They've got two of them, okay? They have a 3/4 ton one that comes with like 10-inch chains on each side. And then they've got this 2-ton version, which is a lot nicer all the way around. Everything about it is nicer. And it's only like a $5 difference. Do yourself a favor, get the good one, get the big one, get the 2-ton. It's only like 35 bucks. So way worth it. And it comes with longer chains. You can adjust it. I mean, obviously you can adjust the other one, but it's just way, way better. And when you go to mount this up, you're gonna do 1, 2, 3. Let me show you right here. So you're going to stick your one chain link in here. That's how it locks down. And then you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the 6th link, that's the one you're going to use. Same thing over here, 6 links. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same thing. And then on the front, it's different on both sides. So on the front passenger side, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 up from the bottom. 7th one you're gonna hook with. And then on the driver's side, I believe it's one less 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So on the 7th one, you're gonna hook on this side. Actually, those are the same, aren't they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7. Okay, so 7 up front, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So use the 6th one in the back, 6th one down in the back, and 7th one up in the front. And that'll give you enough room to get this load leveler underneath the like firewall, I guess you would call it, because here's the thing, you got to get it right underneath of this edge here, okay? And if you leave that hanging way up, if you let these links out and just use, say, the bottom links, in theory that would be fine if you took the cab off of the truck. But with the cab on the truck, you have to be able to get the back side of this underneath, actually almost all the way up to here. So you really got to get this as low as you can. You can't go any lower, hug it any lower than what this already is. I tried, because if you try to go any lower, you're going to start pushing on stuff and it just sucks it in too tight. So you can't actually do that. But right where it is right now is absolutely perfect, and you can get it in there. And again, like I said, you can get the edge, the back half of that load leveler underneath this right here. This big chunk of the firewall that you gotta go down and back into. So that's your biggest thing that's gonna be in your way. I was gonna do it with the intake on, but you have to do it with the intake off because you don't have enough room. You can anchor down and up in front of here, and on the back side it wouldn't matter, you'd still be able to use the same spots. But the problem is, if you do that, you have to end up stretching these chains out, and the load leveler ends up farther away from the engine, and there's no way to get everything underneath of that firewall. So you absolutely have to do it this way. You also need a different lower radiator hose. As you can see, this has an oil cooler. So you can either skip the oil cooler, but you would still have to get a new radiator hose because you would need a T-tap on it, because this sucker, as you may or may not be able to see, is in there. It has got red Loctite on it, and I tried to get it out. You can see how ugly it is. The inside is whopped out, the outside is ground down. It wasn't coming out. I hit it with penetrating oil, a couple different kinds, and it just wasn't happening. So I couldn't even put the return coolant line in there because it just was not coming out. So your options are skip the oil cooler and get a new lower hose with a T-tap on it, or go ahead and keep it and get the lower hose that goes with the 6.4, which has two T-taps coming off of it. So you'll have 2 returns, one for your oil cooler and one for your heater core. So let's see, I think that's it, guys. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and lift it up. I've got, oh, one more thing too while I'm thinking of it. You can see right here, this plug is the plug for the what do you call it? What is this plug for? Let's see. This plug is for, oh, the servo, the active runner servo. So this one on the 5.7s is actually in the back, on the back of the intake, like this right here. Oops, got stuff falling off the shelf on me. Okay, so like this right here, you see how that plug is on the back, right there on the bottom. So this is the 5.7 intake. And on the 6.4 intake, I'll walk you over there. So on the 6.4 intake, you'll be able to see here in a second, right here, the active runner servo is on the front. So it is the same plug, so you don't have to worry about that at all, but it's on the front facing up and not on the back facing down. So you're gonna have to add, I added 30 inches of wire to each to each wire. Whether or not that's overkill, I don't know. We'll find out. But I measured the distance from the back of the intake to the front of the intake, and I came up with like 27, 28 inches, so I just rounded it up to 30 just to make sure I had a little extra room in case I needed it. I didn't want to be short and have to do it again, because it's a lot easier to get in there and stretch that wire out while the motor's out. So now I'm gonna go ahead and cut. You can see the exhaust pipes down there and over there. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut those back. For my particular long tubes, I have to cut, I believe it's 20 inches from the front of the transmission housing. So I gotta measure 20 inches back and cut that off. And then I believe I'll be all set and ready to go ahead and bring her over and drop her in. So let's get to it. Okay, here we go. First start. Pretty sure everything's all bolted in. Go. It worked! It's alive! Wow! Woo! Worth it! Way worth it! God, it sounds so good!